What's up, all my Power Riders crew? Today's video is about, well, let's just show you. Look at that temperature hand just flopping around. Normally that's an indication of your temp sensor has gone bad. You've got two temp sensors. You got one in the water neck where your thermostat goes. Then you got another one on the back side of the head, right beside the valve cover near the firewall right there. That is the one we're dealing with today because that's the one that runs the temp gauge. That's the only job that sensor has, is to run the temp gauge. Now, one thing I'd like to point out, what a lot of people want to do is say, like, we're going to put thread sealing tape on it. Don't do that, because this particular sensor, or a lot of your sensors do, utilize the connection of the metal here to ground to the engine block. So you put thread sealing tape in, what you'll end up doing is insulating this from the engine block, and it will not read correctly, or even work at all for that matter. So, but what you got here is really fine threads. So when you get it screwed in, and don't crank it down tight, but just get it really good hard snug, and you're not going to have any leaks, you're not going to have any problems. So some people want to use thread seal tape. This is where you do not do that, because you need that ground connection to the sensor. Now the sensor we're looking for is way back here, the back side of the head, right back here. I'll have to move this breather tube out of the way. Do that. See if I can make it stay. Let's just take that thing off right there so you guys can get a better idea what's going on. So right there is your sensor. What you're going to need is a 1/2 inch or a 13 millimeter. And if you use a deep well, you probably won't need, you're going to need a deep well anyway, because of where that little wire snaps onto the end of it, it sticks up, so a regular socket's not going to work. You're going to need a 13 or a 1/2 inch deep well. Now when you pull it out, you're going to puke just a little bit of antifreeze is going to pop up. This is nasty. Okay, let me go get a rag real quick and wipe some junk off. Oh. Okay, if you got any oil, debris, whatever, try not to push it inside your block. Clean up on the surface right there. Take your new sensor, simply drop it in, turn it by hand until you feel the threads catch. Turn it a few times that you know that the threads are engaged, because what you don't want to do is throw your ratchet on it and it'd be cross-threaded. And tighten her back up. I can feel it start getting snug there. Notice I'm not like cranking on it. I just got my finger resting against it, pushing, so I can feel how much torque I'm applying to the sensor. Okay, I'm looking down at the sensor right now, and I can see that I've probably got 2 or 3 more threads left sticking out the top of the block, top of the heads, which is absolutely fine. So what we do now is take our one little single wire, plug it back up, and it just pushes on. Nothing special, it just pushes down. Then we'll put my little breather hose back on and we'll be done. Now some of you are asking, did this fix the gauge? Well, check this out. Check it out. Gauge is sitting rock steady. That's awesome. And now they flop around like some crazy psycho. One thing that threw me off guard a little bit is that I kept waiting for the gauge to climb a little bit higher, because in the past on the old temp sensor it would run about 210, maybe a bump above the 210, something like that. Now it's a very good possibility that the temp sensor was even bad then. It just hadn't got to the point that it was flopping around like some crazy psycho, so it could have been bad the whole time. And I'm just thinking, no, hey, this Jeep just runs 210, which a lot of them do. That for them to run 210, 215 is nothing uncommon. My buddy's 2000 TJ, it runs about 210 with a brand new thermostat, brand new radiator, and all that stuff. It just sit, boom, rock steady, 210, boom, it just sits there. So now with my new temp sensor and reading the gauge, there's a possibility that, that's my actual temp, and I'm running about 195, which will be correct because I've got a 195 thermostat in it. Now, some people may say they're going to put a 160 thermostat in because I said I got to run a 195. No, don't. The 160 thermostat for your carbureted Jeeps will be fine. Carbureted vehicles, you can run a 160 T-stat and you're going to be just fine with that. Your fuel-injected vehicles, and I'm not going to say just Jeeps, I'm saying vehicles in particular, oftentimes they want to run a higher temp. 195 is the recommended thermostat for the Jeeps, for the 4.0s and 2.5s. If you go to a lower thermostat and you're only running 160 degrees, the computer thinks that the engine's not warmed up. So what it's going to be doing is throwing extra fuel all the time, and the vehicle will run rich. I get it. I've seen those comments. It's like, well, mine ain't doing it. Yeah, it may be to a greater or lesser degree, but I'm sorry, it's still going to do it because that's the way the computer's programmed. You need to run at least a 195 or higher. And higher, I would not go above a 210 T-stat, simply because it depends on where you live at. If you live in cold climates all the time, 210 can be okay because then you got to get more heat coming out your vents. But if you live in a hot climate and you run at 210, you're kind of pushing your luck, honestly. Stay with a 195 and it'll treat you great. So, no 160s in the fuel-injected Jeeps. Now, your older generations that has the carburetor, you can probably get away with that 160 and not be a big deal. My GT Mustang, I run a 160 in it because it's carbureted. My old 3/4 ton truck I had, that was my old play rock crawler I had, it was carbureted. I run a 160 in it. But all of my fuel injected vehicles, I've always run 195s, period. Now, what about that sensor was making my gauge go nuts? Inside of it's kind of like a little potentiometer, so to speak. I'm getting all nerdy on you now. What a potentiometer is, look at it this way. Inside your house, some people's houses, they have the little rotary knob that you turn the knob left, right, whatever. It makes your light bulb go brighter, dimmer. Some have sliders. I mean, there's those type too. That little rotary knob or that little slider, that is called a potentiometer, or therefore called a variable resistor. And what that does, it chokes off or opens a gate to allow more electricity to come through, which makes your light brighter or dimmer. It chokes down the electricity, therefore your light gets dimmer. It opens up the gates, allows the electricity to flow through faster, and makes your bulb brighter. That's how those work. Much like your fuel sending unit, the little float back there, that's how it works with your gauge in your dash. Temp sensors, same scenario. It's all about how much voltage how much voltage or resistance, whichever, is allowing to pass through for the gauge to read at. Or like the one up in the water neck that runs back to the ECM, back to the computer, that one controls the voltage on what the computer sees, so therefore it knows how to adjust the mixture to the fuel injections. See, not too hard. When you really play it down and not get too nerdy with it, it's a very simplistic system. So that's basically what's going on. The side of that thing has got a lot of, if I remember, tell you what, I do know one of those videos one day where I cut that thing in half, and I'll show you what's inside of it, because I had one once before, a long time ago, that fell apart and had a little spring inside of it, which varied the resistance and stuff. So I'll make a video later on where I'll take that one apart and we'll look at it and see what's inside of it, so you guys get a good idea how it works. Okay, sweet. Alright everyone, again, if you like this video, thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, leave us cool comments down below, and I appreciate you hanging out with me. Peace out. Later, y'all.